Aloha and welcome back. All right, so today we're going to check out some Savvy Sabs. She's going to be talking about Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal pushing for Medicare for all. But, you know, they didn't do it when Joe Biden was in office, when we had some actual, or the Democrats had some actual power, the so-called leftists. But they're going to do it as soon as Trump gets into power. Almost as soon as Trump gets in power. It's kind of strange.
Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal are reintroducing their Medicare for All bill. Now, I know what many of you are going to say. This is exactly what we need. Let's fight. Let's try to get this done. But I think that if you follow me through this segment, you will see my frustration. Number one, I wholeheartedly support Medicare for All. I've marched for Medicare for All. I was an MC at the Boston Medicare for All rally about 3.5 years ago. I've advocated for Medicare for All for years. I am someone who has been directly impacted by the healthcare system that we have in this country. I know what it's
I
like
think we've all been
to
impacted by the healthcare industry in this country.
have to pay to visit the doctor when you don't have insurance or you have inadequate insurance. So I've been in that position and I know what it's like. That is a policy that I could never change my mind on. There are many countries in the world that have universal health care and we do not. And I think you all know that a lot of this has to deal with driven profit.
Right.
That being said,
And both parties are against universal health care.
I do not want people to become so excited about this that they lose sight of reality at this current point in time. Right now, Donald Trump is president of the United States. The Democrats do not have the House. The Democrats do not have the Senate. So while Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal are reintroducing this, they are doing so knowing that it is not going to pass the House. It won't make it to the Senate if it doesn't pass the House. And let's say in some magical world it did, Donald Trump would never pass Medicare for All. He would never sign it. He would veto it.
Right.
So what is this really all about? Let's get into the announcement here.
Performance politics. They're just trying to make the Republicans look bad. And they could have forced a vote when Nancy Pelosi was going for Speaker of the House, when Joe Biden was president, and we could have seen who wanted Medicare for all, and then we could start voting accordingly. But they didn't do that when the Democrats were in office because they didn't want to make the Democrats look bad.
Stop using ChatGPT like everyone.
Shout out to Case Study QB doing the damn thing. Check this out.
Democrats on the Hill introducing the Medicare for All bill. The measure would provide health care to all Americans with zero out-of-pocket expense and total choice of provider. The legislation will likely face challenges from Republicans in both chambers. Democrats.
Okay, did you hear what she just said? The legislation would most likely face challenge from Republicans in both chambers.
Right.
And people get upset when I say they're doing something that's performative. This is a perfect example because they know that this is not going to pass. They're getting people excited, getting people's hopes up. And honestly, the better time to do this, and some of us talked about this then, was during Force the Vote.
Right.
It was under Joe Biden's administration.
And so basically what they're doing is they know that all the Republicans will vote no. So it gives the Democrats more leeway to vote yes, knowing that it's not going to pass anyway. So the Democrats can look good and the Republicans can look bad or whatever. If they would have done it when Joe Biden was in office, they would have had the Democrats that didn't want health care to go through would have had to vote no because it could have passed if they all voted yes because there wouldn't have been enough Republicans to block it. So it is performative and it is fake and it's more sheep herding, sheepdogging, more wolf stuff. Like this is what Malcolm X was talking about. Liberals, they show you their teeth, you think they're smiling, but they're really wolves. They're just as hungry, or they're really foxes. They're just as hungry as the wolves, which are the Republicans, right? Like this is BS, really.
So some of you may be wondering, why is it that Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal did not decide to force the vote on Medicare for All or to push it or to try to reintroduce this again under the Biden administration? Well, there's a difference between making Donald Trump look bad, and actually you probably don't really have to do that. He does that a lot of times on his own,
Right.
and making Joe Biden look bad. Don't forget, even though Bernie Sanders is an independent, he caucuses with the Democratic Party.
And his
And
good
Pramila
friend, Joe
Jayapal
Biden.
is a Democrat in the House. The problem with the parties is that oftentimes, even those who support those universal policies, they only want to seem to try to fight for it when the Republicans are in control, when there's a Republican president, or there's a Republican House or Republican Senate. They know it's not going to pass. Then they can point their fingers and they can say, look, all those Republicans feel that you shouldn't have health care.
Exactly.
What about all the Democrats that feel you shouldn't have health care?
You gotta get them out.
One of the reasons
The
for
duopoly.
force the vote.
The duopoly in general doesn't feel you should have health care, a higher living wage, or anything. Whatever you think of the oligarchy, you should think of the duopoly.
Was because it came directly from the DSA handbook. Directly from the DSA handbook. So the idea, handbook, directly from healthcare. What about all the Democrats that feel you shouldn't have healthcare? One of the reasons for force the vote was because it came directly from the DSA handbook. Directly from the DSA handbook. So the idea was that when members of DSA, Justice Democrats, when they have a narrow majority in the House, which they did at that time, then would be the time for them to force a vote for Medicare for all. The strategy at that point in time was to withhold their vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker unless she agreed to present the Medicare for all bill on the floor. Now, at that time, part of the reason why I feel like this did not come into light, obviously, Nancy Pelosi, the squad not wanting to push back on Dem leadership, wanting to keep their seats. That's a big part of it. But the other part of it is, even in independent media, TYT was against it and Majority Report was against it. They have the largest audience, right? If you look at all the other independent media channels that support these progressive policies, they don't have the numbers that TYT and Majority Report did.
Right, and I talk about TYT a little bit. I talk about Majority Report more. TYT is really far right to me now. Like, I stopped watching TYT about 10 years ago. Majority Report I stopped watching them in probably about 2020 when Michael died. That was sad, but they were like kind of, to me, I could tell Sam was kind of on the right a bit, but it was good to have Michael and him arguing and stuff, and Michael and what's her name, Jamie. I love both of them, like how they were just like openly communist, right, and arguing with Sam and stuff and trying to pull him left or the audience left or whatever. But yeah, this whole TYT and Majority Report, they could have, if they wanted to, they could have really built a third party. They could have built a third party, the left-wing third party. They could have built up the Green Party, DSA, whatever they wanted to do. They should have got together with Kyle Kalinske, Crystal Ball, Humanist Report, all of them people, all the left-wing, or what are actually liberal, all the liberal social media independent that just fight for the Democrats. But if they would have fought for a third party, they would have fought for universal health care. We could have some things done by now. Especially if they'd have been doing it since before 2020.
At that point in time, even though many of TYT's viewers said they supported the squad forcing the vote against Nancy Pelosi, the hosts, Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, decided, nope, we are not going in that direction. And the reason that they gave is that it is not going to pass. But the strategy of force the vote was not just focusing on whether or not it would pass. The strategy was to primary every single one of the Democrat politicians that would vote against Medicare for all during a time of a pandemic. That really was the optimum time to do it, and it was a missed opportunity. There was a force the vote town hall. Number of people participated. Everyone mentions Jimmy Dore, but I want to remind you, all the people who were part of that.
And all you people that are mad at like a Jimmy Dore or Savvy Sav say that they're the dumb left or not the real left or whatever. These are the people trying to get you universal health care. These are the people trying to get you a higher minimum wage. These are people trying to get you real things. And these liberals are the people talking bad about them, talking down about them, making you mad at the people that are really trying to help you. I don't understand how people, like, I get like Jimmy Dore kind of says some silly stuff sometimes, and especially Kurt is a dumbass, but like, I mean, Jimmy has always been on the right side of things, at least, no matter how he kind of comes about, or no matter how he, words his stuff, he's normally on the right side, on the side of people.
Town hall who supported it: Dr. Cornel West, Breonna Joy Gray, Kyle Kalinske, Crystal Ball, Katie Halper. There were also people who had healthcare crisis that came onto the town hall and talked about their story. I watched all of this play out in real life. In fact, it's part of the reason why I started this show, because I was beyond baffled that not one politician attended that town hall, not one. And it's at Ro Khanna, as much as he likes to tout, we're fighting now, Ro Khanna was nowhere to be found. None of them. No AOC, no Ilhan, not one of them who said they supported Medicare for all was willing to participate in that town hall. It was an utter disgrace to me, in my opinion. This really doesn't have anything to do with Jimmy Dore, despite what Jamal Bowman said on Bad Faith Podcast. What this has to do with is those politicians not wanting to upset Dem leadership because they didn't want to lose their seat.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who says you should do something. Jimmy Dore, Savvy Sabs, me, or even if it was someone like Dave Smith or Joe Rogan, who cares? If they're like, oh yeah, we should have universal health care, you should force the vote. Still a good idea. Like, even if somebody as dumb as Jordan Peterson said it, it'd still be a good idea. I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day, they say, right?
That's really what this is all about. But I really believe that if TYT and Majority Report, if Sam Cedar and all of them got on board with everybody else, who knows? Maybe one or two of them would have come to that town hall, but they didn't. I bring up force the vote to prove a point. Why is it that it's okay now to reintroduce the Medicare for All legislation when you know it's not going to pass, but you didn't want to force the vote for Medicare for All when you knew it wasn't going to pass under Biden? Why is that?
Good question. Again, just trying to make the Republicans look bad and trying to save face for the Democrats.
The reason is to protect the Democratic Party.
Exactly.
They didn't want that vote to happen because they didn't want people to see all the Democrat politicians who would also vote against Medicare for All during the time of a pandemic when people desperately so need it.
It's crazy how shady the Democrats are. The more you learn about them, they are like diabolical. They have so many just organizations that act like they're progressive and stuff. The Democrats are crazy, man. I can't believe anybody wants to vote for these guys.
That was Pramila Jayapal as well, who was protecting her colleagues in the Democratic Party. The problem that I had with Justice Democrats and with the squad members is that they only wanted to really fight when Donald Trump is president. When Biden was president, you didn't see this. Why wasn't this bill, why didn't they push this under Biden?
Right when it could have got passed, right?
Because they didn't want to make the Democrat politicians look bad.
Oh, yeah.
The same
They wouldn't
people
pass it.
who want them out of their party, they choose to protect. This is a big problem that I have with what was supposed to be.
And like she just said, the same people that want them out, talking about Bernie and Pramila Jayapal, people who want universal health care. Bernie protects the people that want, and Pramila Jayapal are protecting the people that want them out of the party. The same thing with the people of America. I find a lot of you people that they do not want in the party. They just want your vote, but not your ideas, nothing about you, just your vote. And you guys protect them and act like there's something good and that they're better than the Republicans. Why? How are they better when they're not going to give us the health care that we want? They're going to fine us if we can't afford it. They're not going to raise our minimum wage. They're not going to help our education. They're not going to do anything. They're going to commit more wars. How are they better?
A progressive movement and a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party.
Can't be done.
I want to show you something else too. We'll go on to see here. Again, this is getting a lot of coverage, ladies and gentlemen. Where were these people during Force the Vote?
Next, lawmakers announcing the introduction of Medicare for All legislation. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and Representatives Pramila Jayapal and Debbie Dingell. They're joined by allies from unions and advocacy groups at a news conference. It runs about an hour.
Bernie and Camilla Jayapal walking around hugging
I don't know
people.
if everyone can read the banner, but there are nurses out there as well. And this is what I saw. When I participated in the marches for Medicare for All, there were nurses, there were doctors, there were scholars, like all different people from different walks of life who supported this. There were even some conservatives who supported it and showed the research. There's one doctor in particular, showed the research that we can support Medicare for All. And yes, we can afford it. And yes, it would be cheaper than the system that we currently have. Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal were nowhere to be found when we had those marches for Medicare for All. All of the politicians that supported it were contacted about the marches well in advance. Only one politician showed up, and that was Cori Bush, who I believe happened to stumble upon the one in DC.
And they put her out anyway.
Marches were in over 50 states across the country, and was like, hey, oh, you guys marching for Medicare for All, etc. But from what I heard from people on the ground there, they said that we don't appreciate what you're doing. Her saying the squad didn't appreciate that people were marching for Medicare for All.
Doing their job. That's what the squad is supposed to do. They're supposed to hold their vote so that we can get a vote for Medicare for All. But since they're not going to do it, people are going to march and people are going to protest.
Why? Because Joe Biden was president. Because it was happening under Democrat-controlled House.
Because it was happening under the Democrats. Democrats no different than Republicans. But I'm going to leave it here. As always, I'll leave a link in the description. But yeah, like, I don't know, I've got some comments that some of the people in my audience don't like Sabby as much. I guess I got some liberals in my audience, which is cool. Keep commenting, keep letting me know. Let's have a discussion. But yeah, Sabby wants you to have universal health care. I don't know why you would call her the dumb left, but let me know. Is this dumb here? Do you think we shouldn't have universal health care? Do you think that we should try to push it when Democrats are in office or only when Republicans are in office? Let me know. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Mahalo.